My sister demanded I buy her a $425,000 lake house after I paid my brother's bills, until one explosive wedding outburst exposed her entire scheme. I'm Elijah, 34, male. I own a commercial plumbing business that's on track to pull in about $1.5 million this year. Started from nothing, built it up over 10 years. Now I've got 15 guys working under me and contracts with half the construction companies in the county. Not bad for a guy who was told he'd never amount to anything, right? I've got a brother, Nick, who's 32, solid dude, teaches high school English and writes on the side. Then there's Rebecca, the golden child, sitting pretty at 26. And when I say golden child, I mean this girl has been worshipped like a goddess since birth. While Nick and I got the participation trophy version of parenting, Rebecca got the red carpet treatment. The call that kicked off this whole disaster came at midnight on a Thursday. The phone's buzzing on my nightstand, pulling me out of a dead sleep. I'm thinking someone died or the shop's on fire. I check the screen and it's Nick. My brother doesn't call at midnight unless something's seriously wrong. I sat up fast, heart already pounding. Nick and I have this unspoken rule: we don't do drama calls, we don't panic each other unless it's real. So when I see his name at midnight, I know it's bad before I even answer. I answered it, and his voice was tight with pain, trying to sound calm, but I could hear it underneath. He'd been rock climbing at Red River Gorge, something he did every few months to clear his head. Took a fall, rope caught him, but he slammed into the rock face sideways, shattered his collarbone, broke 3 ribs, sprained his wrist. The hospital patched him up, but he was looking at surgery, months of recovery, and a medical bill that would have buried him. Here's the thing. Nick had been saving up to launch this online literary journal he'd been planning for 2 years. He was still teaching but getting ready to transition. Then boom, climbing accident, and suddenly he's staring at medical expenses that his basic insurance was only covering half of. I drove to the hospital that night, found him sitting up in bed, ribs wrapped, arm in a sling, trying to crack jokes through obvious pain because that's just Nick, always trying to make everyone else feel better, even when he's the one hurting. He started talking about payment plans and maybe selling his car. I shut that down immediately. I've got money, more than I need, honestly, and he's my brother, the one who's been there through every bad breakup, every business setback, every moment that mattered. The same guy who helped me move 3 times, who talked me through my worst days, who celebrated every business milestone like it was his own win. So I covered it. All of it: surgery, medication, physical therapy, even paid for a home health aide for the first month since he lives alone and couldn't lift his arm above his shoulder. The total came to around $50,000 when everything was said and done. He actually teared up, tried to tell me he'd pay me back. I told him if he mentioned repayment one more time, I'd break his other collarbone myself. What I didn't think about was how fast news travels in families. I forgot about my aunt who talks to my mom's friend who talks to my mom. Within a week, everyone knew Elijah dropped serious money to help Nick, including my mom and Rebecca. That's when things went nuclear. Now, to understand why this turned into a family-destroying event, you need to understand what growing up in my house was actually like. And trust me, it was messed up. Nick and I grew up with structure, chores, consequences, accountability. You screw up, you face it. You want something, you earn it. Pretty standard stuff that most kids deal with. Rebecca grew up in a different reality entirely. No rules, no consequences, infinite second chances. Whatever she wanted, she got. Whatever she did, it was excused. I remember the exact moment I realized how different things were going to be. I was 10, Nick was 8, Rebecca had just turned 2. We're at this family restaurant and she wants dessert before dinner. Mom says they'll order it after we eat. Rebecca loses it. Full nuclear meltdown, screaming, throwing silverware, the whole restaurant staring at us. Any normal parent shuts that down, takes the kid outside, teaches them that tantrums don't work. But not my parents. My dad looked embarrassed but didn't do anything. My mom smiled, stroked Rebecca's hair like she was some kind of angel, and ordered her not 1 dessert, but 2 to calm her down. Because nothing says good parenting like rewarding a public meltdown with ice cream, right? Nick and I just sat there. We both remembered getting disciplined for way less. I caught his eye across the table and something passed between us in that moment, this silent understanding that the rules had just changed. That's when we knew Rebecca wasn't just the baby, she was royalty. My dad tried to balance things sometimes. He'd slip Nick and me cash when Rebecca got expensive gifts for no reason. He'd take us fishing or to ball games, just the 3 of us. But even he couldn't counteract the tidal wave of favoritism pouring out of my mother. And here's the thing. Looking back on it now, I think my dad was weak. He saw what was happening, and instead of standing up to my mom, he just tried to quietly make up for it. That's not being a good parent, that's being a coward. And God forbid you ever called out Rebecca's behavior in front of Mom. I learned that lesson hard when I was 14. I'd saved up for months to buy this compound bow, worked odd jobs, mowed lawns, saved every dollar, finally bought it, and kept it in the garage. Rebecca, who was 6 at the time, decided she wanted to play with it. Didn't ask, just took it. She completely destroyed the thing, trying to shoot it without knowing what she was doing. Cracked the limb, frayed the string, made it unusable. I found her in the backyard with the pieces scattered around her. I was furious. That bow represented months of work. When I confronted her, she looked me dead in the eye and said she didn't care, it was stupid anyway. I told my mom what happened, expecting some acknowledgement that what Rebecca did was wrong. Instead, Mom blamed me, said I shouldn't have left it where Rebecca could reach it, said I was being selfish, not sharing with my little sister, said I needed to be more responsible. Right? I had to be more responsible for my 6-year-old sister deliberately destroying my property. That was the lesson. Nick found me that night sitting in the garage looking at the destroyed bow. He didn't say anything, just sat with me. As Rebecca got older, she didn't just stay spoiled, she got mean, smart about it too. By her teenage years, she'd perfected this skill where she'd cut you down with a smile, make it impossible to call her out without looking like the bad guy. She had this talent for knowing exactly what insecurity to target, exactly when to strike for maximum damage. I remember this Thanksgiving when I was 20, home from community college where I was taking business classes. I was excited about my plans to start a plumbing business, already working as an apprentice saving money. I'm telling my uncle about it when Rebecca, who was 12 and dressed in clothes that cost more than my monthly rent, decided to chime in. Plumbing? Elijah? Seriously? You're going to be a glorified janitor? That's so embarrassing. I'd literally die if I had to tell people my brother plays with toilets for a living. Mom and Dad must be so disappointed. The table went quiet. My uncle looked uncomfortable. Nick's face went red. My dad shifted in his seat but didn't say anything. And my mom actually laughed and said, "Oh, Rebecca, you're terrible. Elijah knows you're just teasing." But looking at Rebecca's face, that little smirk, everyone knew she wasn't teasing. She meant it. I left the table, didn't come back. That was the beginning of me pulling away from family gatherings. Nick got it worse than me sometimes. He's more sensitive, more in his head. Rebecca knew exactly how to get under his skin. The Christmas incident when Nick was 24 still makes me want to punch a wall. We're at my parents' house. Nick had just published his first short story in a small literary magazine. It wasn't big money, but it was his dream, his validation that he could actually write. He's showing it to our grandmother when Rebecca, home from her expensive college that my parents were fully paying for while Nick and I had student loans, decides to destroy him. Published? She laughed. Nick, that's not published. That's some online blog that probably has 12 readers. Real writers get book deals and movie rights. You're never going to make it as a writer. You know that, right? You're going to be living in a small apartment teaching bratty kids forever, wondering what could have been. It's honestly kind of pathetic watching you pretend. Nick's face went white. His hands were shaking. My dad cleared his throat but said nothing. And Mom? She smiled and said, "Rebecca's just being realistic, honey. Not everyone can make a living as an artist." I followed Nick outside, found him sitting in his car, head on the steering wheel. That was the Christmas he stopped coming to family events unless absolutely forced to. Rebecca came for me differently. She'd attack my business, my appearance, my life choices. Anything to feel superior. I remember when I was 26. First year my business was really taking off. I was working 80-hour weeks, exhausted. During a family dinner, she looked at me with those calculating eyes and delivered her verdict. "Elijah, you look like hell. Have you seen yourself? You're aging terribly. All those long hours getting dirty every day, dealing with literal sewage. What woman is going to want that? You're going to end up alone. No wife, no kids, just your wrenches and your pride." The words hit different because buried in them was my own insecurity. I was working so hard I didn't have time for relationships. I'd had a serious girlfriend break up with me a few months before because I was never available. I wondered sometimes if I was sacrificing too much, but what made it worse was my mom's response. "Rebecca has a point, Elijah. You really should think about balance. Work isn't everything." This coming from the woman who never worked a day in her life after marrying my dad. Life advice from someone whose biggest decision each day was which yoga class to attend. Nick and I stopped going to family events after that, unless we absolutely had to. We built our own lives, our own successes away from their toxic garbage. Now my dad was the buffer between us and Mom's worst impulses. He wasn't perfect, but he tried. He'd tell us he was proud when Mom wasn't around, tried to encourage us. But even Dad had his massive blind spots with Rebecca. He never really disciplined her, never held her accountable. And when he died 6 years ago, it became clear just how much he'd enabled the whole dynamic. The cancer took him fast, pancreatic. From diagnosis to funeral was 4 months. During those months, I watched our family dynamic completely disintegrate. Rebecca treated his illness like an inconvenience. She complained about hospital visits, spent his last weeks partying with her friends, posting party photos on Instagram while Dad was literally dying. She'd show up to the hospital with a hangover, stay for 20 minutes, then leave to go shopping. Nick and I were there every day, sitting and talking with him, trying to make him comfortable. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and death. And I'll never forget how small Dad looked in that bed. Toward the end, Dad was lucid enough to have real conversations. He apologized to us once, said he knew things had been unfair, that he should have stood up to Mom more. Said he was proud of who we'd become despite everything. That conversation meant a lot, but it also made me angry because if he knew, why didn't he fix it? When Dad died, Rebecca didn't even cry at the funeral. She stood there in an expensive black dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion, checking her phone while the pastor spoke. My friend Vincent, who came to support me, noticed it too, leaned over and whispered, "Dude, what's wrong with your sister?" I didn't have an answer. The will reading was interesting. Dad had done well in real estate development, left the business to his partner, gave Mom the house and the investment income from his properties. Nick, Rebecca, and I each got other assets. I got 2 rental properties and $50,000 in cash. Nick got similar. Rebecca got the same equal distribution. It was fair. I used my inheritance as working capital, expanded my business, bought equipment, hired more guys. Nick put his toward his education and living expenses while he worked on his writing. Rebecca burned through hers in less than a year. Designer clothes, expensive trips to Europe, luxury items she'd post on Instagram with captions about being blessed and living my truth. The distance between us became a canyon. What used to be every holiday became just Thanksgiving and Christmas, then just Christmas, then nothing. Nick and I built our lives. He kept his teaching job while working on his journal. I grew my business. We supported each other and had our own lives. For 6 years, this was normal. My mom and Rebecca on one side, Nick and me on the other, an invisible wall between us. They lived in their bubble. Rebecca had decided she was an influencer despite having barely 2,000 followers, most of whom were bought. She'd post about her brand partnerships and her content strategy. But everyone knew the truth. She had no job, no income, nothing but Mom's money keeping her afloat. At 26, she still lived at home, still had her bills paid, still acted like the world owed her everything. It was pathetic, but it wasn't my problem, until it suddenly was. So 5 days after I paid Nick's medical bills, my phone rang. I was negotiating a contract for a new office building, in the middle of explaining our timeline when my phone starts going off over and over. Rebecca's name on the screen. I ignored it the first 3 times. The 4th time, I excused myself, answered it, and Rebecca's voice was bright and cheerful, like we talked every day instead of not having spoken in 2 years. "Elijah." Finally, I was starting to think you were ignoring me. Nobody calls me Elijah. She does it specifically to annoy me. Works every time. "Rebecca, I'm at work. What's the emergency?" "No emergency. I have amazing news. I found this perfect lake house. It's absolutely gorgeous, Elijah. 3 bedrooms, boat dock, right on Lake Cumberland. Can you even imagine me in a lake house?" I stood there in the construction trailer, phone pressed to my ear, genuinely confused about why she was calling me. Through the window, I could see my crew waiting, the client checking his watch. And here's Rebecca talking about a lake house like we're best friends catching up. That's nice. Why are you telling me this? Well, obviously, I need your help to buy it. It's for $25,000 and I can cover like maybe $80,000 with what I have. Lie. She had no money. Since you just helped Nick with all his medical stuff, I figured it's only fair you help me too. Equal treatment, right? This girl who hadn't spoken to me in years, who'd spent our entire childhood telling me I was a failure, who'd mocked my business and my life choices, was casually asking for over $300,000 like she was borrowing $20. I was genuinely impressed by the nerve. "No." "What?" I said no. "But you helped Nick. You paid all his medical bills. I heard it was like $50,000. Nick's situation is completely different. He had a medical emergency. He's working and building his career. And most importantly, Nick and I actually have a relationship. We talk, we support each other, we're brothers. You and I, we're just people who share DNA. We're family. You're supposed to help me. It's not fair that you're playing favorites." The irony of her accusing me of playing favorites was so thick I almost laughed. This girl who'd been the favorite for 26 years, who'd gotten everything handed to her while Nick and I scraped by, was lecturing me about fairness. "Rebecca, you're 26 years old. You want a lake house? Get a job and buy it yourself. I have a job. I'm an influencer. I have brand deals. No, you have a hobby that Mom funds. You have 2,000 followers, half of which are bots. That's not a career. That's playing pretend while Mom pays your bills. You want a lake house? Go get a real job. Work for 5 or 10 years. Save money. Buy it yourself. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me because I'm more successful and attractive. And Mom and Dad loved me more. You're right about one thing. They did love you more. Congratulations on that. But their favoritism doesn't extend to my bank account. Get a job, Rebecca, or don't. I don't care. But I'm not funding your fantasy lifestyle." I hung up, put my phone on silent, went back to my meeting. By the time I checked it that evening, I had 23 missed calls from her and 31 from my mother. I knew what was coming. Vincent, my business partner and best friend since high school, was at my place when I finally listened to the voicemails. He was the only person I'd told about the family drama, the only one who knew the full story. "Let me guess," Vincent said, drinking on my couch. "Mom's calling to tell you you're a terrible son for not buying Princess a castle. Close. Lake house. Oh great, you going to call her back? Let her stew for a day." But my mom wasn't the type to wait. The call came the next night. I was at my girlfriend Haley's apartment. We'd been together for 3 years at that point, engaged for about a month. She knew about my family situation, knew I'd cut them off years ago, supported the decision completely. I saw Mom's name on the screen and knew it was going to be bad. Haley looked at me, mouthed, "You okay?" I nodded, answered it with, "Hey Mom, don't you hey Mom me. How dare you? How dare you refuse to help your sister after everything this family has done for you? After all the support we've given you, and you can't even help poor Rebecca when she needs you." She called me in tears, Elijah. Tears. First of all, Rebecca's 26, not 6. Second, what exactly has this family done for me? Because from where I'm standing, I built everything I have on my own while being told I was going to be a glorified janitor and die alone, while being mocked for my career choice, while being treated like a second-class citizen compared to Rebecca. So please enlighten me about all this support. You're being dramatic. Rebecca was just a child when she said those things. You need to grow up and let go of the past. She called me a loser for owning a plumbing business literally last Christmas. Mom, when exactly does she stop being just a child in your eyes? That's not the point. The point is you helped Nick with tens of thousands of dollars but won't help Rebecca with her lake house. It's favoritism, and it's cruel. Yes, it's favoritism. I favor people who treat me with basic human respect over people who treat me like garbage. Pretty simple equation. She's your sister. No, Mom, she's your daughter. And Rebecca has made it crystal clear for 26 years that she doesn't consider me family unless she wants something from me. There was a pause. Then her voice changed, got colder, more calculated. I could hear her switching tactics, going for the manipulation that had worked when I was younger. Your father would be so disappointed in you. He'd be ashamed. That one hit different, because Dad and I had made peace before he died. He told me he was proud of me. Dad told me before he died that he was proud of me, that he wished he'd stood up to you more, that he was sorry for not protecting Nick and me better. So don't you dare use his memory to manipulate me. I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm stating facts. We need to help Rebecca. Your father always made sure she was taken care of. It's what he would have wanted. Dad wanted Rebecca to stand on her own 2 feet, but he's not here to say it anymore, so you get to rewrite history. Convenient. If you're going to be cruel and refuse to help your family, then maybe we need to reconsider this relationship. Maybe you're not part of this family anymore. Maybe I'm not. And you know what? That sounds like a relief. Fine, then consider yourself cut off. Don't bother coming around. Don't call. You're not welcome here anymore. Rebecca and I want nothing to do with you. I haven't been to your house in 2 years, Mom. You only call when you want something. But sure, make this my fault. Oh, and Mom, just so you know, you won't be getting an invitation to my wedding. Haley and I are getting married in 4 months. Have a nice life. I hung up before she could respond. Haley was looking at me with this mix of sympathy and anger. Your mom is unbelievable. Yeah, but now it's over. She made the choice. I'm done. That night, I blocked both of them on everything. Nick did the same when I told him what happened. Vincent sent me a text that just said, "About time, brother." The relief was immediate and enormous. No more worry about family gatherings. No more bracing for the next insult. No more pretending that emotional abuse was acceptable because family. We were free. 2 weeks after the blowout, something unexpected happened. My dad's old business partner, a guy named Bill Hicks, called me for a meeting. Bill had taken over the real estate development business after Dad died, had been running it successfully ever since. He and Dad had built it from nothing together back in the day. Nick and I met him at his office downtown. He looked stressed, which wasn't like him. Guy was usually calm and collected. His office was all dark wood and leather, the kind of place that smelled like money and cigars. Photos of completed developments lined the walls. Dad's legacy. Your mother's trying to pull something, Bill said without preamble. She wants to transfer half her stake in the company to Rebecca. Wants Rebecca to have voting rights on major decisions. Nick and I looked at each other, shocked. She can't be serious, I said. Dead serious. Filed the paperwork last week. Here's the problem. Your dad set things up so your mom gets the income from his share, but I maintain operational control. That's worked fine for 6 years, because your mom stays out of company business. But if Rebecca gets voting rights, she could derail every decision we make. She'd be a disaster. She has no business experience, no understanding of real estate, nothing. She'd vote based on whatever benefits her personally or whatever mood she's in. Last week, she posted on Instagram that she doesn't believe in zoning laws because they limit creative freedom. That's who wants voting rights. Why are you telling us? Nick asked. We're not involved in the business. Because your dad built this company from nothing. He trusted me to protect it and grow it. I can't let his legacy get destroyed because your mom wants to give Rebecca another free ride. I need you two to talk to them. Make them see reason, for your dad's sake. I wanted to refuse immediately. We just cut them off, just found our peace. But thinking about what the company meant to Dad, I knew we had to try. We'll talk to them, I said, but no promises. They're not exactly rational when it comes to Rebecca. The visit to my parents' house 3 days later felt surreal. I hadn't been there in over 2 years. The place looked different. colder. Every surface had photos of Rebecca. It was like a shrine to her ego. Rebecca was there lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. My mom was fussing over her like she was some kind of queen. "What the heck are you doing in my house?" Rebecca said when she saw us. Didn't even look up from her phone. "We're here about the company," Nick said calmly. "Bill told us what you're planning." "My planning?" Rebecca sat up, eyes cold. "You mean my rightful position in Dad's company? The position neither of you wanted." "We didn't want it because Dad specifically set it up so we wouldn't be involved. He wanted Bill to run it. It was his dying wish." "Dad's dead," Rebecca said flatly. "Things change. I deserve a say in the company that's funding this family. Unless you two suddenly care about the family business after ignoring it for 6 years. This isn't about us. This is about respecting what Dad wanted and protecting his legacy from someone who's completely unqualified." "What the heck do you mean?" "I'm a businesswoman. I run my own brand." I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. "Rebecca, you're a trust fund kid living off Mom. You've never had a real job, never earned $1 on your own, never made a business decision in your life. What makes you think you're qualified to vote on multi-million-dollar development deals? Because it's mine. Dad left us all equal inheritances, but you two got to go off and build your careers while I stayed here taking care of Mom. Now it's my turn to benefit from the family business." "Taking care of Mom?" Nick couldn't hold back. "You mean living rent-free while she pays for everything? That's being a parasite. Real talk though, I'd seen actual parasites with better work ethics. Get out." My mom stood up, face red with anger. "Get out of my house. How dare you come here and insult your sister?" "Mom, please," Nick tried. "Just think about what Dad would want. He specifically structured things to protect the company from family drama." For just a second, I saw something flicker in her face. Memory, maybe regret. She was thinking about Dad, about his wishes. Then Rebecca grabbed her hand. "Mom, don't listen to them. They're just jealous. They don't want me to succeed because they know I'll be better at business than they ever were. They hate that their little sister is going to outshine them." The moment broke. Mom's face hardened. "Get out, both of you. I'll do what's best for Rebecca, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. This is still my house and you're not welcome here." I made one last attempt. "Mom, Dad built that company from nothing. It was his life's work. Please don't let Rebecca destroy it just because you can't say no to her." She slammed the door in our faces. Nick and I sat in my truck in the driveway for a minute, both of us processing what just happened. "Well, we tried," Nick said. "Yeah, we tried." 2 weeks went by. Radio silence. Bill was preparing for the worst, talking to lawyers about options to block the transfer. Then out of nowhere, Bill called with unexpected news: "Your mother changed her mind. She's not giving Rebecca voting rights. She's transferring some preferred shares that will give Rebecca dividend income, but no operational control." "What changed?" I asked. "Not sure. She just called yesterday and said she'd reconsidered. Mentioned something about honoring your father's wishes. Maybe what you said got through to her after all." It was a partial victory. Rebecca would still get money she hadn't earned, but at least Dad's company was safe from her incompetence. Small miracles. The next few months were the most peaceful I'd had in years. No phone calls, no manipulation, no drama, just silence, which was better than anything we'd had before. Nick's journal launched and got featured in a major literary magazine. His collarbone healed completely, and he was back to climbing. My business hit that 1.5 million annual revenue milestone I'd been working toward for years. Haley and I planned the wedding of our dreams. We sent invitations to everyone we cared about. Friends, extended family. Haley's entire family who'd basically adopted me. 2 names were deliberately excluded from the list. Word spread fast through the family network. My cousin told me Mom and Rebecca were furious when they realized they were the only ones not invited. How can he not invite his own mother? Rebecca had apparently screamed at a family reunion. "He's a vindictive jerk." Yeah, can't imagine why the people who treated me like garbage for 30 years didn't make the guest list. Shocking development. Several relatives told me privately they were glad I'd finally cut ties. My uncle pulled me aside at his own daughter's wedding, 2 months before mine. "Your dad would be proud of you, Elijah. He always worried about how your mom's favoritism damaged you and Nick. He'd be happy you're protecting yourself now." That validation meant everything. Then I learned through the family grapevine that Mom had sold the house and bought the lake house Rebecca wanted. They were living there together now, playing pretend that Rebecca was a successful influencer and businesswoman. Living the dream with 2,000 bot followers and 0 income. Let them live in their fantasy. My wedding day arrived on a perfect Saturday in June. Outdoor venue overlooking a lake, 150 people, everyone we actually cared about. I stood at the altar watching Haley's family get seated, Vincent cracking jokes next to me to keep me calm. Nick was my best man standing next to me in his suit. Vincent was one of my groomsmen along with some guys from my crew. Haley looked incredible walking down the aisle with her dad. This was it. The start of my actual life, surrounded only by people who genuinely gave a darn about me. The ceremony was perfect. The vows hit exactly right. We were pronounced husband and wife and everyone cheered. That's when I saw her. My mother was standing at the back of the venue, Rebecca next to her. Neither of them had been at the ceremony, but they were here now for the reception. They'd shown up uninvited. Haley saw them too, squeezed my hand. Do you want me to handle this? Nah, I've got it. But before I could move, my mom started walking toward us. Her face was twisted with anger, mascara running like she'd been crying. Rebecca was filming on her phone, that smug little smile on her face. How dare you? Mom's voice was loud enough that people nearby turned to look. How dare you get married without your family, without your mother? I kept my voice calm, steady. You're not invited here. This is a private event. You need to leave. Private. I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I raised you, and this is how you repay me. By excluding me from your wedding? Her voice was getting louder, more unhinged. People were starting to stare. Haley's brother, a cop named Owen, who was built like a linebacker, started moving toward us from across the venue. You didn't raise me, Mom. You raised Rebecca. Nick and I raised ourselves while you obsessed over your golden child. Now leave before I have you removed. You ungrateful piece of garbage. She was yelling now, full volume, face red. I sacrificed everything for you. Everything. And you threw it all away because I wouldn't let you play favorites. Rebecca was still filming. The only sacrifice you made was sacrificing 2 kids for 1, I said. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. Leave now. You think you're so successful with your little plumbing business? You're pathetic. You play with toilets. You're a glorified janitor. And her? She pointed at Haley. She's marrying down. Way down. She could do so much better than some loser like you. That's when Owen arrived, flanked by 2 other groomsmen. Ma'am, you need to leave now. This is private property and you're trespassing. Mom turned on him. This is my son. I have every right to be here. No, ma'am, you don't. You weren't invited. You need to leave voluntarily or I'll remove you. You can't do this, Elijah. Tell them. I looked at her. This woman who'd made my childhood hell, who'd chosen 1 kid over 2, who'd shown up to my wedding just to cause a scene, and felt absolutely nothing. Officer, please remove these 2 from the property. They're trespassing. Mom's face went from red to purple. You'll regret this. You're dead to me, both of you. She was looking at Nick now, who'd moved to stand next to me. You're not my sons. You're nothing. Nothing. Owen took her arm. Ma'am, let's go. Don't make this worse. Rebecca finally stopped filming, looking uncertain for the first time. Mom, we should go. No, I'm not leaving. Owen nodded to the other groomsmen, and they physically escorted her toward the exit. She was screaming the entire way, causing a massive scene, completely unhinged. Rebecca followed, trying to act above it all, but clearly embarrassed. The venue went silent for a few seconds after they were gone. Then someone started laughing. Then someone started clapping. Then the whole place erupted in applause. Nothing brings a wedding together quite like watching toxic people get escorted out. My mom showed up expecting to ruin our wedding and instead gave everyone a show that proved exactly why we cut her off. Nick was grinning. Well, that was very satisfying, brother. Vincent handed me a cold drink. Dude, your mom just made your wedding legendary. Everyone's going to remember this forever. He was right. The rest of the reception was incredible. People kept coming up to congratulate us, tell us how well we handled it, and share their own toxic family stories. Haley and I had our first dance, cut the cake, did all the wedding stuff. But the best moment came during the toasts. Nick stood up, glass in hand, and gave a speech. Elijah's not just my brother, Nick said. He's the one I will forever count on. And Haley, you're getting the best man I know. Welcome to the family. He paused, smiled. Well, the real family. Everyone cheered. Haley was crying. I teared up a little. This was family. Not the people who treated me like garbage. Rebecca was wrong about everything. She said I'd be a loser with a failed business. I built $1 million company. She said I'd die alone. I married an incredible woman who actually loves me for who I am. She said I'd regret cutting them off. Best decision I ever made. And my mom, she got exactly what she wanted. A golden child to worship. Apparently, Mom and Rebecca had shown up at his office demanding higher dividend payouts to cover the Lakehouse expenses that were piling up faster than they'd anticipated. The HOA had hit them with a $12,000 special assessment for dock repairs across the community. Their insurance premium had jumped from $3,200 to $6,800 annually after the company reevaluated lakefront property risk. They'd gotten a quote for $8,500 to fix rotting boards on their private dock. Bill told them the same thing he'd told them before. Company policy doesn't allow special dividend distributions outside the normal schedule, and cash flow timing meant no exceptions. They'd have to wait for the quarterly payout like everyone else. He said Mom looked furious and Rebecca actually seemed worried for the first time in her life. My takeaway? They were going to have to learn to budget, or Rebecca was going to have to get an actual job. Either way, not my problem anymore.